How do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
Hello and welcome to Influencer Police, a place where we expose the lies, the cheating, and the dirty ways of these filthy influencers. Today's suspect, Ruby Franke. I definitely want to give a trigger warning for this video. We are going to be talking about some very sensitive topics, some topics that are very uncomfortable, unsettling, disgusting, demonic, creepy. The worst words in the dictionary you can find is what we are talking about today. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar with Ruby Franke, oh child, there is a lot to unpack there.
Let's take a look at a detailed timeline of the Ruby Franke situation and everything that's been going on. First, this is Ruby Franke. Behind her is her husband, Kevin Franke, and their 6 children. Ruby Franke started a video vlog on YouTube in 2015, and they called it 8 Passengers. The Franke's oldest child is their daughter, Sherry. She is 20 years old, and last year in 2022, she moved out and basically left her family behind. She wanted nothing to do with them, and she actually posted this on her Instagram account. Their second oldest is Chad. Chad is now 18 years old, and he no longer lives with the family, but no one is really sure where exactly he is, as he's not posting on social media. The next 2 children in the family are the 2 daughters. One is 16 now and the other is 14. And then the 2 youngest, their son, who is now 12 years old, and their daughter, who is now 10. The 8 Passengers YouTube channel took off fairly quickly. During 2015, there were a lot of family vloggers on YouTube and a lot of Mormon family vloggers as well. The channel started off being a typical Mormon suburban family, but things started to get odd with the disciplining that Ruby and Kevin were having with their children, and people started to get extremely concerned. Several videos have become extremely controversial. One of them was this scene where Ruby Franke's in her car and she just received a phone call from Eve's teacher. Eve was just beginning school, so she was 5 or 6 years old, and the teacher said she had forgotten her lunch. She contacted Ruby to ask Ruby to drop a lunch off, and Ruby says she's not going to deliver a lunch because it was Eve's responsibility to pack her lunch and to bring it to school, and she didn't, so this is a lesson learned, and that the teachers at the school better not provide her with lunch. Another controversial moment on the show is when their oldest child, Chad, plays a prank on his younger brother. Apparently, he woke up his younger brother at about 2 in the morning to tell him he was going to Disney World when in fact they weren't. They decided punishment for Chad would be to be grounded from his room for 7 months. So Chad, on one of the video vlogs, announces that he had been sleeping on a beanbag chair as they took his bed from him. People became so concerned over her parenting styles that was all they were posting on her content on YouTube, to the point where she stopped posting. She would post just 2, maybe 3 times a week, eventually stopped posting completely, and in January of 2022, she took down her channel. Now we need to introduce Jodi Hildebrandt, Ruby's business partner. So Jodi was spoken about on the 8 Passengers video vlog on YouTube. Apparently, Jodi was the family's therapist. Chad is actually video recorded talking about going to see his therapist, and it turns out it was Jodi Hildebrandt. In June of 2022, Ruby Franke joins Jodi Hildebrandt and her Connections website and blog. Basically, it's an advice channel where they give parenting, relationship advice, and a lot of people have noticed it has extremely strong views.
So Ruby Franke is, or was, an alleged child abuser. I believe this summer she was taken into custody after one of her children, who she was allegedly abusing, ran away from home, went to a neighbor's, and the neighbors called the cops. There was an investigation. They took Ruby Franke in along with her partner in crime, Jodi. who is like this woman. Jodi is like this woman apparently who is really big in the Utah Mormon scene. Now, I'm not here to talk about anyone's religion or, the Mormons. That is, I don't even know half of that shit, okay? But all I'm telling you is that this woman is really big in that scene. And she is a very creepy woman who is allegedly been accused of being a child abuser. And unfortunately, from multiple people's testimonies, it's been going on for a while. And she's also known in the community to divide a wedge between, wives and husbands and make the wives turn on their husbands and divorce them and all this craziness. She's really known there. But for some reason, allegedly the Mormon church keeps pushing this woman onto more victims, onto new people. They recommend her. So this shit is deep, I will tell you. But today is about Ruby Franke because she just pleaded guilty to 4 counts of child abuse against her own children. 4 different counts. And we're going to get into what those counts are, what exactly she is pleading guilty to. And if you are unfamiliar, pleading guilty means you are confessing to your crimes. You're saying, yeah, I did it. And people usually plead guilty in hopes to have a lower sentence, because the way that our courts work, if you plead guilty, you're like saving, the court time. There doesn't have to be like this whole trial thing, whatever. So they usually give you a lower sentence because you pleaded guilty and you like save the court's time. Which, for a case like this, I'm like, that should not even be an option. Maximum sentence completely. So we're going to get into the charges, but before, I want to say that each charge that she pleaded guilty for is up to a 1 to 15 year sentence. So just for these 4 counts, I believe there could even be more, honestly, and they're still investigating, but just for the 4 counts that she pleaded guilty for, if they gave her the maximum sentence of jail time, it would be 60 years. Let that sink in. 60 years. If she got the minimum, it would be like 4 to 7, 10, whatever. So we're going to see what, this judge gives her, but that will be taking place in February. So we still have a little bit of ways for her actual sentencing, but yeah, she did just plead guilty, and that is it is just so disgusting and so horrific and so sad for the kids. But let's get into the charges. But before that, I'm going to play the video right now of her pleading guilty.
Ms. Franke is now here. Mr. Windward, we are scheduled for a waiver hearing. Is there going to be a waiver today?
There will, plus a plea agreement, Your Honor.
All right.
I'll ask the bailiff to hand you if it's been executed.
All right. Mr. Windward, you have discussed with Ms. Franke a preliminary hearing, what's involved in a preliminary hearing. She understands she has a right to a preliminary hearing on all of the charges in the case. She understands what the charges are, and she's prepared to waive a preliminary hearing in the case on all charges.
She is, and that is contained in this agreement on page 7 as well.
Very good. All right. I've been handed a plea agreement, and it appears to be signed by Ms. Franke. Ms. Franke, did you sign this agreement?
Yes,
And you did that today? When did you sign it?
on the 18th.
Okay. You've read it carefully?
Every word.
Your signature represents to the court that you've read it carefully, that you understand what you've read, and that you agree to all of the terms. Is that all accurate?
Yes.
You've had sufficient time to ask questions of your counsel to go over any questions you have? You're ready to go forward.
Yes,
You don't need any more time.
I'm ready.
Ms. Franke, is anyone pressuring you to enter into this agreement?
No,
Anyone promising you anything I haven't been told about?
no,
Anything that's not in the written plea agreement?
no,
Are you under the influence of alcohol or drugs today?
no,
Is there anything today that could in any way interfere with your ability to understand the agreement, its consequences, anything?
no,
No physical condition, no medication, nothing?
no.
Any further record, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Windward, we ready to proceed?
We are ready to proceed.
All right, then. Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
So as we can see in this video, her family is behind her. I'm not sure exactly which members of the family that is. I believe her mom was there, or her husband that she's like allegedly getting a divorce to, and some of her sisters or something. But they are there. And I question why they are there. Like, do you know what this girl just did? Like, this woman is batshit crazy. Like, why are you there supporting her? I know it's like your child, I know it's your sister, but I'm like, these allegations are horrendous. So let's get into the actual charges. Now, I'm getting these clips from the Dad Challenge podcast. I absolutely love that channel and this podcast. I watch it from time to time, and I really like his takes on things. So, and I know that he's been covering this case for a good minute. So if you do want to learn more about Ruby Franke and this case, I would definitely recommend his channel to learn more about that. But we're going to be reacting to his video about it because he'll reads it out loud. He has it already. Let me just react to that. So let's go. And I also do want to just say another trigger warning, because this stuff that we are about to get into is absolutely horrifying.
All right, so here it is. This is Eric Clark. So this is the 5th District Court, Washington County, the state of Utah versus Ruby Franke, first crime. So I am pleading guilty to the following crimes. First, aggravated child abuse, section 75 Utah Code. 1 to 15 years in Utah State Prison, a fine of $10,000 plus 90% surcharge, $53 court thing. Thank you. We're going to go with case 2, second degree felony, which is aggravated child abuse, and then they're all 4 are aggravated child abuse, just to save time, and all 4 carry a sentence of 1 to 15 years in Utah State Prison and a fine of $10,000. So max fine of $40,000 plus, a few $100s more for core surcharge, security fees.
Okay, so 40,000 is the max. 40,000? I think that's kind of a joke. Like, it should be way more than 40,000. And I think the 1 to 15 years is also not enough. How could it be 1 year as the minimum? These are children.
I've received a copy of the information. This is what she's, again, a secondary felony that the defendant initially knowingly inflicted upon a child seriously physical injury. And they are all basically the same thing. They're saying, I knowingly did this. And then now this is when we get into this part here where she actually talks about what she did. Okay, from approximately May 22nd, 2023 until August 30th, 2023 in Washington County, Utah, the defendant, Ruby Franke, intentionally or knowingly inflicted and allowed another adult to inflict serious physical injuries upon her children that were ages 9, 11, 12, as more fully described below.
And the other adult in question that this document is mentioning is the Jodi woman.
The defendant's actions involved the physical torture of RF Initially, RF was forced to do physical tasks for hours and days at a time. These included wall sits, which, if you don't know what wall sit is, it's really, really difficult to do a wall sit. Okay, it's like an ab workout and a core workout. Carrying boxes full of books and downstairs, working outside. Eventually, RF was forced to do outside labor without shoes in the summer heat. He was forced to stand in the direct sunlight for several days. He was forced to remain outside at all hours of the day and night for extended periods of time. These actions resulted in repeated and serious sunburns with blisters and sloughing skin. RF was denied adequate water for several of the days he was required to remain in the summer heat. And he was punished when he secretly consumed water.
That is actually disgusting and so disturbing on so many levels. So if someone doesn't know what a wall sit is, I'm pretty sure it's like when you put your back to the wall and you're like in a squatting position, and then you just have to hold it for like as ever long as, I guess in this case, they were telling their child to. So I mean, that is just torture in itself. Like, if you try to do that right now and you're not in shape, even if you are in shape, you can't last that long. So the fact that they were having their kid like be in that position for like so much time is concerning. But the leaving your child in the sun for days and nights and hours at a time and not even giving him water, that literally sounds like this kid could have died of like dehydration, malnourishment. Wow, this is so disgusting and like crazy. I feel so bad. I feel so bad for that poor child. These poor kids. I mean, she had, what was it, 6 kids she had? And I believe that these charges are against her 2 youngest children. So a boy and a girl. Let's continue.
He was denied sufficient food, and when given food, he was given very plain meals, like rice and chicken, while others in the house ate regular and more flavorful meals. He was isolated from other people and denied all forms of entertainment, including books, notebooks, and electronics. In addition...
So yeah, he's malnourished. They're barely feeding him. They're feeding him like probably the nastiest shit, while they're having fucking probably buffets of the most extravagant foods, which she can buy from the money she's gotten over the years exploiting her children. And then she's treating her children like the absolute filth that she is.
After RF attempted to run away in July, his hands and feet were regularly bound. Binding included being tied to the defendant and to weights to the defendant, by the way, okay, Ruby, it looks like that's what it's saying here, and to weights. Many times the binding included using 2 sets of handcuffs, one on RF's wrists and one on his ankles, at times with RF lying on his stomach. Ropes were used to tie the 2 sets of handcuffs together so that his arms and lower legs were lifted off the ground. That's absolutely torture. The bindings resulted in injuries to RF's wrists and ankles, where the handcuffs cut through the skin and damaged the muscle tissue. These injuries were treated with homeopathic remedies covered with duct tape. Then the bindings were placed, and they're talking about like spices and stuff that's not really going to fix it.
Can you rewind for a second? They are being lifted off the ground in like bondage, like their hands and feet are tied together, and then they're lifted off the ground with a rope. This is sounding like medieval torture. This is absolutely disgusting. So people have been clocking the 8 Passengers family channel for a very long time, and more specifically Ruby Franke, because what she would post in her family vlogs were always just like a little bit off and seemingly abusive, but I don't think anyone would have imagined it was this bad. Like, I know there was one instance where Ruby said in a vlog that she, you know, her daughter, like her 8-year-old daughter, forgot a lunch to bring a lunch, and she wanted the daughter to learn a lesson and starve the whole day, so she refused to bring her daughter a lunch and wanted no one else in the school to give the daughter food. Like, she literally wanted her daughter to starve to learn the lesson at 8 years old.
I just got a text message from Eve's teacher, and she said that Eve did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? This happens quite often when you're raising children, because I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch, and it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with a lunch. But I responded and just said, Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry. And hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch, because then she's not going to learn from the natural outcome. My hope is that she'll be hungry and come home and go, oh man, that was really painful being hungry all day. I will make sure to always have a lunch with me.
I mean, there's like things like that were in the vlogs, but this, I'm imagining what these poor kids went through, and wow, it's really demonic, satanic, disgusting. You have to be the most evil type of person to do anything like this to anyone, let alone a child.
Specific instances of abuse committed by the defendant include: 1, kicking RF while wearing boots, holding his head underwater, cutting off oxygen by placing her hands over his mouth and nose. Now, I'm not a lawyer or anything. Is that not attempted murder? Is that really not attempted murder? Is Jodi going in for more than just aggravated abuse? Because I see that that's aggravated child abuse, but that to me is attempted murder. You're putting your booted leg on some kid's head, and then you're trying to drown them holding his head underwater and cutting off oxygen by placing hands over his mouth and nose. That's attempted murder.
Okay, this one is... The rest were already horrific. This is actually beyond disturbing. Can you imagine doing this to your own child? To any child? To any person? You have to be the sickest motherfucking freak to do this. This is kicking your child with a boot and then trying to drown them. I have literally no words. This is so disgusting. That's why I'm like, dude, 60 years, bitch, that ain't enough. Like, this person is mad evil. And even if you did have, like, let's say Jodi, telling you to do this, you still did this. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, what else did this Jodi woman have people do to their kids? I mean, how deep does this go? This is so disturbing.
This is I'm a tenth of the way through this thing. There's no justice right now. She gets to plead this, and she might serve minimum 4 years, and it should be probably more. It should be like forever. After you're reading this, do you have any remorse for her at all? And like those people supporting her? This is attempted murder.
After reading this, I literally I never had any remorse for her. Ever. But after reading this, I don't know how her family is sitting behind her in support. Like, did they read this? Am I missing something? And then apparently Ruby's mom, like, mouthed "I love you" to Ruby, like, after she pleaded guilty to this. And I understand it's her mom and stuff, but I'm just like, this is like unforgivable. This is a monster.
Count 2, the actions described above caused severe emotion harm to RF due to the fact that they began in May and escalated through the summer months. So May, June, July, August. This kid was being tortured for 4 months. Was being denied water, was being denied oxygen, was having his head held underwater, was being kicked while they're wearing boots for 4 months. Yeah, she pleaded guilty. They shouldn't be able to, like, it should be like, no, we're going trial. We're going to put you away for the rest of your life. This is craziness. It's crazy that it's not attempted murder. That, and somebody who knows more about the law, clearly I know nothing about the law, because in my brain, that's cut and dry. If that came out earlier, why weren't the charges escalated past that? And what is the precedent set for trying to kill somebody by cutting off oxygen and placing their hands over their mouth and nose, holding head underwater? That's not abuse. I mean, of course it's abuse, but why does that not rise to the level of something else?
I'm gonna have to agree with him on this. Like, that sounds like, I mean, even if her intent wasn't to kill this child could have died from all of this. And there's even reports that the neighbors, that like Jodi's neighbors, because a lot of this would take place in Jodi's house, they were saying they're surprised. They thought that one day they were going to see these kids come out in body bags. And then you hear all of this. And I really don't know why there's not higher charges being put against her. And part of me is like, she probably knows that maybe these charges could be elevated to possibly attempted murder or something. So maybe she's pleading just for the child abuse one, because the minimum has only 1 year sentence. And if it was anything escalated like attempted murder, there'd be a lot more punishment. So this is really crazy. Really, really crazy.
This is a good point Darian says here. They were going to kill him if they get caught. Like, what would happen if he didn't run away? Like, this was only escalating more.
Yes, what would happen if this child didn't run away? So the youngest son, what would happen if he never ran away and like escaped to the neighbors? What would have happened to him and his sister? Would they even still be alive? I mean, I can't even like imagine like the 4 months of just complete torture that these children went through. But part of me is like, I think it probably gone on for longer than 4 months. I mean, maybe it got to the worst levels in the 4 months. But first of all, I'm grateful that the kids are not with her or in this situation any longer. I am completely sad and devastated that the trauma that these kids are going to have to work through in their lives, and just how mentally probably like so distraught they are from all of this. I mean, this is going to be like years. This is going to be like years of therapy that they have to unpack all of this, and I just hope they know that it's not their fault, that they have this psycho woman and disgusting evil mom doing this to them. It's horrible.
Let's continue here. The action described caused, okay. Additionally, the defendant and another adult regularly sought to indoctrinate RF and convince him that he was evil and possessed, and that he needed to willingly be obedient to avoid punishments, and that the punishments were necessary to repent. He was also told that everything that was being done to him were acts of love. Acts of love. That's what this kid was told. And this is a kid. Don't forget, this is a child, everybody. This child will believe this.
So this whole time when they're being tortured, they are being told that they're evil, that they're possessed, and that in order to not be tortured, they need to be obedient. I mean, can you just imagine like being a child, like the mental gymnastics this would put your mind through? Like, children are so impressionable, and to have your mom tell you this, that you're evil, that you're possessed and you need to repent and you have to be obedient or you're going to be tortured. Demonic and satanic is like not even a strong enough word to describe these people. I also want to mention that when he did run away and talk to the neighbor was like asking him like, what's going on? Like, what do you need? And like, what's happening? He was covered in wounds, this child. And the neighbor told the police on the phone, he was like calling the cops, that the child was saying that it was his fault. That it was his fault for what was happening to him. And this goes to show just from this document that, yes, they were indoctrinating him to think that it was his fault, which is so sad and fucked up.
Acts of love. The defendant's actions also caused severe emotional harm to EF. Other than binding in the specific instance of abuse RF was subjected to, EF was subjected to the same treatment as her brother. She was also isolated and forced to do physical tasks, remain outside, and denied food and water. She was also repeatedly told she was evil and possessed. The punishments were necessary for her to be obedient and repent, and these things were being done to her in order to help her. EF was convinced that she was evil and needed to go through these things to repent.
So the little girl, they were doing the same things to the little boy. Wait, they're doing the same things to the little girl as the little boy.
The defendant's actions caused 2 or more physical injuries to EF. She was forced to work outside in heat barefoot. Why don't I wear shoes? She was also forced to run barefoot on dirt roads for an extended period of time. EF's feet were repeatedly injured by, and she was repeatedly sunburned. When examined on August 30th, these wounds were apparent by scabs, blistered, and sloughing skin.
Okay, so they're also making their child or their children be barefoot in the blazing Utah heat, not allow them to wear shoes, running around on dirt roads, probably some asphalt too, burning their feet, burning their skin literally like how the fuck is he saying that? Sloughing off? But you know what I'm talking about. They're literally like sunburned to the point of like pain. This is absolutely horrifying, and I hope that both of these women get the maximum sentencing. I hope that there's more investigation that takes place and we find out even more. I'm not sure how the husband is getting away scot-free. I know that he was allegedly not involved in this time period because Jodi allegedly made Ruby separate from him for like a year or something. So he claims he had no contact with the kids and he had no idea what was going on, but a lot of people are not buying that. So people are like, why is he not being investigated? There's just a lot going on. So that is what's currently going on. This woman just pleaded guilty to all of that. I'm hoping that she gets the maximum sentence and there's more further investigations. I feel absolutely disgusted and horrified for the children. I just hope them absolute healing and love. I don't know exactly who's watching over them right now. I know that they were with Sherry, like one of the older daughters, but I don't know if they're still with her. But this is absolutely horrific. So disturbing and disgusting. But yeah, so this just happened. She just pleaded guilty, and we'll see, what the judge sentences her in February, and we'll see what happens with Jodi. This is so dark. This is so dark and worse than anyone could ever imagine. So, Ruby Franke, you are under motherfucking arrest. Literally. But anyways, that is it for this video. Let me know your thoughts below, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm also working on a very long video right now. It's probably going to be like an hour and a half, 2 hours, exposing a dirty influencer. So that will be coming up. And I want to talk about the streamies with Crazy Tana Mojo. So I'm trying to get those videos up, but after all of this, after this heavy one, just take care. I hope that this didn't trigger anyone too much out there. Take care of yourselves, take care of your kids, hug your family. Love and light, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.